Hi, Reverend Paula Zabkar here from Spiritual Soul Center with a soul session for you at midweek. Well, we've heard a lot, and I've read a lot about all the crises going on, whether it's in our nation or in the world. But there is one crisis that I'm convinced that we can all contribute to end, and that is by applying empathy to the world. Empathy. I think there's a crisis in a lack of empathy. Let me read you the dictionary.com definitions of empathy. Empathy, the psychological identification or vicarious experiencing of the feelings, thoughts, and attitudes of another. Ooh. Here's another way of putting it. The power of understanding and imaginatively entering into another person's feelings. You see, I think there's a lack of that. And it's not about taking on other people's burdens, but expanding our own understanding of what it might be like to live their life or to have that experience that we might not have had. It calls us to think about how we might feel, how we imagine we might feel in a situation that we haven't had a personal experience about. And the first thing that came to my mind was the experience of hunger. Like, I don't remember ever being hungry a day in my life. Oh yes, if I was limiting my food intake and I had those growling pains in my stomach, but to really experience hunger of not having enough food, I've never had that experience. I've never had the experience of being homeless, of not being able to lay down in bed at night and to feel comfortable on sheets, on a clean bed. I often make mention of that to Renee as we're going to bed, saying, God, doesn't it feel so great to have a roof over our heads and a bed to lay in, to get a good night's sleep? What about putting ourselves in the feeling and thoughts and of someone who's being bullied? I've never been bullied in my life. I've never been taken advantage of that way. I've never been abused. I've never been, woken up for weeks and months at a time being scared. What must it feel like for someone who wakes up that way of knowing that there's a chance that they might die that day due to violence, for instance? Being depressed, people who are addicted, people who are alone, people who are radicalized, people who are in physical and emotional pain. If we haven't experienced those things, empathy calls us to step into that feeling nature. Because you know what? I think eventually all of us benefit from the empathy of others. All of us eventually find ourselves in that place of being comforted by empathy. And when we're there in empathy, our heart is softened. There's a connection that we make. There's an acknowledgement that we are seen. When we're able to empathize with someone and someone feels seen because of that, it's a huge thing. Think about that yourself. So to turn this crisis around of the lack of empathy, we simply need to imagine the feelings and the thoughts and the attitudes of others who are walking a path that we haven't walked, who might be struggling, who might be having a difficult time. To feel that. Not to take on the burden, not to try to fix it, but just to feel that so that our heart softens, so that we can ask the question, what's the next best step? How can we move forward and with empathy in our heart to make decisions that are good for everybody? I think that's really how this crisis can be overcome. And with each step we take toward empathy, toward understanding to a greater depth, we can see a little bit further, and we can make the next best decision for all of us of how we're going to inhabit and live in this world. Empathy. I think it's the crisis that can be averted in a way we move forward together.